If you ever wanted to know when and how to use named return values in Go and really what they even are, then you've come to the right place, because in this video we are going to quickly talk about named return values in Go. So let's just get started. I think really the first question to clarify is what even are named return values or named returns. And we are going to check this out by just having a really simplified example of reading a file and returning the first line of this file. So what I mean by that is that we maybe have a function, let's just call it first line, and then this function will return actually the line, the actual line, the first line of this file, then the length of the line, and then a possible error. And right here for this function we are just going to specify an argument which will be the file name. So we will just call this file, for instance, test.txt. And what we can then do is, for instance, just have a simple printf right here, and then we'll have line is equal to %q, really some simple formatting. Then we have n is equal to %d, and then error is equal to %v and then \n, really simple. Then we have line n and error. Right, quite simple. This is our whole use case. So let's just create this function first line. So we say func and then first line, and then we need to specify this function parameter, which will be the path. And right here, the types, or specifically the return values, are just named, and naming them really creates variables we can use inside the function, right? And we can actually do this by just having the variable name. So for instance, line, which is of type string, right? Then n, which is of type integer, and then a possible error. Now, normally this function without these named returns would look something like this, right? So we would have a string return type, an integer return type, and an error return type. However, we can specify the names for that, and therefore also kind of declare variables already specifically for this function. And obviously the first thing we need to do in this function is to just open the file. So what we can do is f error and then os.open, and then we are going to read the path right here. Now if there is going to be some sort of error, we are just going to return an empty line, 0, and then error, right? So right here we are just going to open the file, and if this fails we just return immediately. And here what is important to know is that we assign to the named return variable error in this case. Now, because they are named, line, n, and error are just ordinary variables we can use anywhere in the function, like I said earlier. And this is really important to highlight, and this is also really important to know, because that's the whole point of these named return values. Alright, after that we are just going to define a deferred function we are going to call immediately, or like after basically this function ends, right? So defer just schedules this function to really run when the first line function in this case just exits, or like whenever this happens, or this function exits, no matter how it actually happens. And right here we will always close the file, or at least we try to close the file. And obviously this can fail, right? This can return an error, but we don't handle the error right now. We will do that later. Okay, let's just set up a reader, which should be efficient enough for line-by-line reading. So we just say buff.io and then .new reader. And we specify f here, right, which is the file, or the open file in this case. And then we say r.readString, and then basically this \n, and this returns a line and a possible error right here. Now this read string just reads until it finds a new line character, right? And here what is really important is that we are not really redeclaring or declaring a new line variable. We directly override the named return value. And then what we're going to do is we are going to check for an error. And basically, if it is not, or if this specific error is not an EOF, so end of file error, we're just going to return an empty string, 0 length, and the error right here, right? So if that file has no specific new line, it just returns io.eof when it reaches the end. And that is not really a failure for us, because we still somehow got the line, right? And whenever we are kind of returning right here this specific error, a real error actually happened. So for instance, a disk IO failure. Now after all that happens, we are just going to basically check if the length of the line is bigger than 0. And we are going to check check the end of the line, if this is equal to a \n, so a new line character, then we can say line is equal to line and then this kind of syntax right here. So what is really going to happen right here is we are just going to strip the trailing new line so the caller gets just a clean text. And we only do this really if we actually read a new line, right? So in the end, we are just going to kind of strip the new line character so that we have a cleaned up version of this new line. And then we are just going to, in the end, assign this n variable, remember, which is a variable which we've declared as a named return value and which is only scoped for our first line function. And we are going to assign the value or the length of the line right here. And then we are just going to return line n and error. All right, and this is basically the basic example and it looks kind of all right? So we've used these named return values right here, and there are even plenty of examples in the Go standard library where named returns are basically used. So for instance, if we are going to look at this with cancel function, we are going to see these named returns right here, right? And this is just one example in the Go standard library where named returns are actually used. Now this example right here will actually work, but now the real question is, when should you actually use these named returns? An obvious example would be, for instance, for this use case right here, whenever you want to return multiple values, right? Because this would just benefit us, because using these named returns also serves as kind of an inline documentation when a function returns several values of the same type. So I mean, right here it's kind of clear because we have 3 different types, but let's just imagine a function where we kind of return 3 string types or 3 string values. And here it would be beneficial actually to name them to have some sort of inline documentation. But even then we could just decide and possibly also should refactor the return values and encapsulate them in a struct. However, if you've got something where structs are not appropriate due to additional complexity or where the function is just small enough, named returns can be used. But then it's just important to avoid naked returns. Now a naked return is quite simple, and it's basically whenever we have a function and we have these named returns, so a string and b string for instance, and we just say a is equal to string 1 and b is equal to string 2, and then we just return, right? This is a naked return, and this can be really hard to understand for longer and more complex functions, obviously. So let's just remove this right here. And with that out of the way, as promised in the beginning, let's just complete the arrow handling right here inside the defer of our first line function, because here now named returns are really beneficial. So like I said in the beginning, we are trying to close the file right here, and this can obviously fail. So let's just name this return possible error C error in this case. And this can happen, for instance, if the file system is full. And now if the error, so the kind of scoped error variable is equal to nil and the C error is not equal to nil, so we only want to kind of override the error if we don't already have one. And right here, reading the data is the real job, right? And the close error is just the secondary error and is not really the priority in this use case. And then we are just going to say error is equal to C error. And here is really the magic of these named returns, because the return variable error is just named, and this deferred function is modifying the same error that the caller will receive. And it's important to highlight that the deferred function's own return values are always discarded. And if we would use unnamed returns, there's simply no variable left for the deferred to write to, if that makes sense. Now the entire function body right here just owns these named returns, and Go really makes them visible and mutable inside these deferred function literals after a return has set them, but before control actually passes to the caller. And that's why we can really mutate this error named return right here, and that's why this one will be also in the end returned to the caller, right? And this is quite cool. So let's just create a simple test file right here. What did we actually name them? Let's just call it test.txt, and then we will say hello world, for instance. And then let's just run go run main.go, and what we'll see is the line, which is hello world, the length, and the error is obviously nil. So to conclude, I would only use named returns in really special occasions or use cases, and I would not really use them when the function is small and the return types are self-explanatory. And I would not use them when the function can be refactored to like use a struct instead of having multiple return values. However, whenever I would use them, I would basically avoid these naked returns and explicitly return the named values instead. So please use named returns sparingly because they can really be also hard to read. Alright, and that should be it for this video. Now hopefully you've learned something today. If you are interested in learning what the init function in Go actually does, feel free to check out this video right here. Anyway, thank you so much for watching, have a lovely day, and bye bye.